conservatives over at Fox News claim that they care about children, so much so that they want to regulate women's bodies and make sure that they don't have the ability to decide whether or not they have children, because more children, the better. But when it comes to actually providing financial support to parents, that's where they leave the conversation. And so during a recent discussion on Fox News, the topic of childcare came up, where Biden, of course, has proposed expanding childcare by $225 billion. So Americans who can't afford private childcare have a public option. Now, Fox doesn't like that, and they had JD Vance on to share his thoughts. Let's hear what he had to say.
A pretty consistent finding is that most people, when they have young kids, they want to be able to spend more time at home with their children, not be forced into the workforce. And if you compare that to the words of Biden advisor Susan Rice, who says this plan is meant to get as many parents, especially mothers, into the workforce, I stop and say, well, why do we want that? If more parents want to spend more time at home with their kids, why don't we make that the goal of public policy rather than shifting a ton of people into a massive federally mandated daycare system?
Right.
And importantly, that federal daycare system is going to be really low quality. So it's going to be bad for the parents, but it's also going to be bad for the kids who are forced into it.
So a few things that were said there that should be cleared up. Number one, how does he know that the public daycare centers will be awful? There's no evidence to that. He just decided to claim that they're going to be awful without providing any facts or anything to back that up. Secondly, there is no federal mandate on childcare. There isn't. No one's proposed a federal mandate. There's no indication that private daycare centers will be shut down to make way for publicly funded daycare centers. Just complete and utter lies. But what I'd also like to mention is that the whole point of funding a public childcare system so women can go to work if they choose to is that they have that option. If they somehow have the financial means to stay home and they can miraculously live in the United States in a household where only one person is bringing income, well then great, they have the option of doing that. But the thing is, with the way that people are paid in this country, with the stagnant wages in this country and the cost of living consistently going up year after year, most American families don't even have that option because they don't have that financial situation allowing them to make that choice.
So Fox News just thinks it's 1955. They're like, look, women obviously want to stay at home, probably bare feet and somewhere near the kitchen vicinity.
Some women do. Some women do want to stay home.
No, but first of all,
like
of
having
course
a
that's
bunch,
true.
but like having two conservative men tell America what women in general want to do is stupid, because they have no idea. The problem in American society is that women don't get to make a choice. You don't get to make a choice. You have to go to work. And so the question is, what is the government gonna do to provide support to women so they can make whatever choice they want, whether it's staying at home or going to work?
So some women, of course, want to stay at home. Some guys want to stay at home. But their assumption is that's what's normal. That's how this conversation began, because JD Vance in another setting said that it was the normal thing to do, okay? And that's what Ducey asked him about. Yeah, in 1955, it was normal for women to stay at home. It wasn't great, and they didn't really agree to it, but that was the norm, right? Now it's not the norm, and it's not out of choice. It's because everybody has to work. Both the mom and the dad have to work in order to survive. But these guys think it's still Harriet and Ozzy, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm home now. Little lady's been cooking for me because I brought home plenty of bacon. They don't live on planet Earth.
Let's go to the next clip where Ducey chimes in with some good old fear-mongering about unions.
Rather than being operated by the private sector, which would be responsible to providing something great, it would be nationalized, it would be enforced by federal rules, and undoubtedly, JD, it would be unionized.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Steve. And if we've learned one thing over the past year, it's that maybe the unions have too much power over our kids. Maybe these government unions have too much power, and we should be taking away their power, not giving them more power.
Okay, let's put the union thing aside for 1 minute, because I do want to just jump in on like what they're trying to do here with like private versus public daycare. Private daycare will still be an option. So if parents decide that they want to throw their money away, and sometimes to the tune of literally thousands of dollars a month to put their kids in a private daycare center, they still have that option. The question is, what happens to the households that do not have the funds necessary to throw that money away on thousands of dollars a month on private daycare? Again, private daycare exists, but the problem is parents who don't have the means are left basically not knowing what to do when it comes to childcare, because they both have to work, they have children, they don't know what to do with the children while they have to work. And with only a private option and very few public options, clearly what Biden is proposing here with expanding public childcare makes a lot of sense. There is no support for parents in this country. We have no federally mandated parental leave, family leave. We have a crappy defunded public daycare system, thanks to Reagan, by the way. And then they're like sitting there like, this is what we think women should do. This is what we think women want. Dude, you don't even know what Americans want to read. You published a crappy book. Like, who are you to tell women what they want to do?
All Republicans think JD Vance is so sophisticated. They're like, oh, you should see JD Vance. He is so smart. I mean, when he says awful things, he says them in a way that kind of artfully covers them.
Very loyally,
yeah. Very. All right. In this case, look, I know all of you get that Fox News is a joke, or not all of you, but most of you do, right? But the people that watch Fox News actually think that they're telling the truth. They really believe it. And so if you watch that segment, Ducey said it was talked about basically a federal takeover, and then he said it's going to be nationalized. You would walk away from that segment thinking that the jackbooted thugs of the federal government are gonna walk into your daycare, knock the door down and go, this has been nationalized. Yeah. The government is running this daycare center from now on.
Which, by the way,
because he said it was all daycare was gonna be nationalized.
I know.
That's not remotely true. That's
lie.
A total and utter lie.
By the way, they should be. If I were in charge, that's what my proposal would be. No more private schools, all public. We're gonna do the Finland model. Sorry, you don't like it, you can leave. Okay. No, I'm serious.
No,
though.
I got you, but that's different. Right? We're talking about secondary
That is
education.
not. I know that's not what's happening here, and we're not talking to. Yeah, exactly.
And believe me, Biden's not going to do what she wants.
Not even close. But anyway, we do have. And by the way, if you're wondering, like, is Anna crazy? Like, why would she want to do something like that? Go take a look at what happened to the education system in Finland before, when they had privatized education mixed with public education, and what it is now. The quality of education once they did away with the privatized education. Anyway, sorry for that tangent. I do want to also just quickly comment on the union take that Ducey had there, the fear-mongering about unions. It's interesting because when it comes to the teachers union, there's no end to how brutal their commentary is, how critical their commentary is, especially during the coronavirus pandemic when teachers were like, listen, we want to get back to class, but we're already spending our money on supplies for students, and we barely get paid. Can we just get a little bit of support with PPE just so we make sure that we don't get sick and die? And everyone's like, oh my God, these teachers unions, they're the worst. They're the worst. They're the worst. They don't want to die. What's wrong with them? We want to get rid of our kids. Please take them. Anyway, but when it comes to police unions that support cops regardless of how many unarmed individuals they shoot and kill in broad daylight, then that's okay. Let's go to the next video.
It's so weird to me how our elites, especially those on the left, define opportunity and define achievement purely in terms of labor market success. And again, most of the people that I talk to, frankly, men and women, the most important thing in their lives is not their jobs, it's their families and their children. People like to work, they like to have careers, but the most important thing is their children. We should not be defining success and achievement in this country as shunting as many parents as possible into the labor force when a lot of them want to spend more time with their kids.
Literally no one on the left looks at the labor market and does what he just said right there, right?
We use it as a metric for judging how good people are. That's like literally what the right wing does.
Exactly.
If you're rich, then it's meritocracy and you merited it and you're awesome. If you're poor, you're just trying to take money from me and you're worthless. And middle class, you're also taking money from me, etc. You see how the left wing judges based on economic grounds? Don't be ridiculous. And then, by the way, when we then say, hey, why don't we judge the inherent value of human beings? Like, for example, in healthcare, we let 45,000 people a year die because they don't have healthcare, because they can't afford healthcare. They don't have enough dollars and cents, and so we let them die. And the right wing goes, yes, do that. They didn't have enough money. They should have paid into the system. By the way, to be fair, corporate Democrats also agree. Let them die, because everything is about money, money, money for the people in power. And this guy goes, we care about the families and the children. Oh, get out of here, you fraud.
So one final part of this, which I think is important to bring up, is how Fox News likes to tailor their message to whatever topic they're talking about, even if the message they're talking about in that moment conflicts with what they previously discussed. And what they had previously discussed was the jobs numbers that were released by the Labor Department just last week, indicating that there's been a slowdown in the number of jobs being created, right? And so on one hand, during the videos that we just showed you, it's like, oh, but women should stay home. Women need to stay home and take care of their kids. Women should stay home. But then they're like, no. Maybe they should go to work. We can't make up our mind. It just depends on how we're attacking the Biden administration on any given subject on any given day. Watch.
As Bank of America economists who are cited in a Bloomberg story say, anybody making less than $32,000 a year is better off financially just taking the unemployment benefit. So is the White House creating an incentive just to stay home?
Well, again, the majority of economists, internally and externally of the White House, don't feel that unemployment insurance, something that was done at a time where to help unemployed people get through a very difficult economic downturn during a pandemic, is a major driver in our unemployment data.
So Anna, this is a tale of two Duceys. So, and it's actually very telling. So you got the younger Ducey saying, why don't you cut people's unemployment so you force them back to work and take away their choice, because we got to have everybody back to work. Then his dad, on the other hand, is talking to JD Vance, and he's saying, now they want the women to go back to work?
How dare they?
Now think about that. That means they want everybody back to work but the women. Interesting. Okay, that's Fox News right there in a nutshell, because it's 1955. You know, they need them barefoot and back in the kitchen. I want all the men forced back into the mines, but the women forced back into the kitchen. But the most important thing out of all this, guys, is they keep pretending as if there's a choice. So you increase their wages, and then they won't make more from $300 from unemployment than they would from their wages. Their wages are ridiculously low. And women could make the choice, and men could make the choice to stay at home if you actually paid real wages. Because then one person could actually bring home enough money for the other person to take care of the family at home. But we don't have that choice, even if we wanted to have that choice, because the wages haven't gone up in now nearly 50 years. And who are the people who constantly fight against higher wages for the American worker? Republicans. No to higher minimum wage, no to fighting corporate power on your behalf, no to unions doing collective bargaining on your behalf. And by the way, when you raise the minimum wage or unions raise the wages at giant companies like Amazon, etc., it also raises middle class wages because it puts pressure to increase the wages of the middle class, right? But the Republicans fight against every single one of those. So the current federal minimum wage is $7.25. That's $15,000 a year if you work full time. So they're saying, have the women go back into the kitchen, and you guys, I'm gonna take your unemployment away from you. And now go work for $15,000 a year and make enough to live. You clueless, barbaric.
And it just shows how their free market arguments make absolutely no sense, because we're seeing how the so-called free market is playing out in real time, right? This notion of, well, if you don't like this employer, if you don't like what they're offering you in pay, you don't work there, right? And that's the market communicating to the employers that they need to raise their pay. They have to pay more to attract talent, to attract employees. But what's happening right now? These corporations aren't saying, oh, damn, look at this. Workers who are getting only a tiny $400 a week in unemployment find that better than coming back to work for us. Maybe we should rate, like they're not saying maybe we should increase what we're offering. They're just keeping things the way they are and demanding that the Biden administration withdraw the unemployment benefits or end them early to essentially force American workers to go back to the jobs that pay them less than the unemployment benefits being given by the US government. Think about that. They don't even want to pay their employees $400 a week. That's free market doesn't really decide, apparently.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.